When I reached the age where most girls were preparing for marriage, I had already lost sight in one eye. Yet Jonathan Reed, the celebrated young military officer, publicly married me and made me his wife. The entire city whispered about how madly he loved me. That was what I believed too, until the day I found the letter he had written to my older sister Catherine. It was filled with tender words for her and cold disdain for me. "Catherine, she is blind in one eye now, no longer resembling you at all. Every time I share a bed with her, I feel sick to my stomach. When I return from my military campaign, I will divorce her and marry you. Will you wait for me?" The day I discovered that letter was the day something inside me broke. Not long after, I went into battle myself, earning a distinguished victory. When President Samuel Whitaker asked if I had any wish to be granted, I knelt firmly and requested a divorce from Jonathan Reed. In that moment, I caught sight of him standing below the dais, his eyes reddening in an instant. That night, Jonathan was drunk. Our maid Linnea came to tell me he had called for me all along the road, and even in his drunken state, he had brought back a few sweet osmanthus cakes for me to try. I tucked the damning letter safely away and returned to my room. He was sitting on the couch, his hand braced against his cheek, smiling at me as though nothing in the world had changed. "You're here," he said warmly. He was still as handsome as when we were young, his refined features and easy charm like a spring breeze. He beckoned me closer, but I didn't move. He chuckled softly, staggered over, and pulled me into his arms. "You usually scold me when I'm drunk. Why are you so quiet tonight? Are you angry?" He pressed a warm cake into my hand. "It's cold outside, so I kept it in my coat to keep it warm for you." I stared at him silently until he noticed the redness in my eyes. For 3 years, he had always been quick to sense my smallest shifts in mood. He reached up gently, brushing his fingers over my injured eye with a trace of tenderness. "Does it hurt? Is it bothering you again?" In a hurry, he sat me down and took from his sleeve the medicine I used for my eye medicine my sister had made for me, which he carried everywhere. If I had not read that letter, I might have believed that he truly cared. Tilting my head, he applied the ointment with careful hands and blew softly, his warm breath and faint scent of wine brushing my skin. "You've worked so hard, it's my fault. I won't come home late again. If you hurt, I hurt more. You must take care of yourself." I looked at him with my one good eye, unable to tell if this was genuine affection or a performance meant to soothe his conscience. The way he called me my wife used to make my heart flutter, but now it tasted bitter. Before our marriage, he called me Isabella. Afterward, whether in public or private, it was always my wife. The city believed Jonathan Reed loved me to madness, but I now understood the truth. Those words were never meant for me alone. He had written in that letter that I no longer looked like her, my sister. Every time he called me my wife, he was in his heart speaking to Catherine through me. I pulled away from his touch and asked quietly, "Why don't you ever call me Isabella anymore?" His hand froze mid-air, uncertainty flashing in his eyes. After a long silence, he said, "Because my wife is the most fitting term. It was a lie." In his letter, he had confessed he didn't dare say Catherine's name aloud, for fear he might lose control and call it by accident. I swallowed my pride and asked him one last question. "Jonathan, did you really care for me since we were children like you always claimed?" We had been childhood sweethearts, growing up side by side. He loved riding and archery, dreaming of military glory. I loved reading war strategy, arranging formations, wielding a spear, and dreamed of fighting for my country. Our families often said we were a perfect match. He had never objected and even encouraged me to stay true to myself. But there was something I had overlooked. He had grown up alongside my sister as well. Catherine was quiet and loved medicine, smiling only occasionally when she watched us play. When I came of age, I waited all day for Jonathan to arrive and ask for my hand, but he never came. The next day, he invited me on an outing beyond the city. I thought he was finally going to confess his feelings. We climbed a hill together, but before I could find out his intentions, we stumbled upon a group of bandits attacking a village. Jonathan and I charged into the chaos to help the villagers. When an arrow flew toward him, my body moved before my mind could think. I stepped into its path, and the shaft drove deep into my eye. Pain engulfed me so completely I could barely breathe. As darkness closed in, my last thought was that I would never again see the lonely sunsets over the desert. I had never cared for embroidery or the quiet skills expected of women, I loved the weight of a spear in my hand, the crack of a bowstring, the rush of the charge. My father had resisted the idea of me entering the battlefield, but I fought him with every argument I had. Heroes are not bound by gender, I told him, and he had no right to dismiss my resolve to defend our country. In the end, he gave me his blessing, but fate took my vision before I could prove myself. I could no longer stand proudly behind him, boasting that my aim never missed. My father's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and my mother could no longer contain her anger. Her palm struck Jonathan across the face. I had expected her to resent him for ruining my chances of marrying well, but instead her voice broke with grief. On the day my daughter came of age, you didn't come to ask for her hand as promised. Instead, you lured her outside and put her in harm's way. She wanted only to earn honor and service to this nation. Who says a woman cannot fight? You let her lose an eye. How can she defend her country now? How will you repay her for this dream you've stolen? My own eyes were swollen from tears, but my heart felt strangely light. My parents understood me better than I had ever realized. I wanted to tell them it wasn't Jonathan's fault. No one could have predicted the attack, and no child of this nation could watch its people suffer without acting. Jonathan dropped to his knees before me, bowing his head again and again. I, Jonathan Reed, have cared for Isabella for a long time. I will take responsibility for her for the rest of her life. Please grant your blessing to our marriage. I swear I will never fail her. But I know now that on the day I came of age, he had gone to Catherine to confess his feelings. When she refused him, he turned to me seeking comfort in the face that so closely resembled hers. For 3 years after our wedding, we lived as though in a honeymoon, each embrace convincing me he loved me. Yet in his heart, every touch was tainted with resentment, for he believed his duty to me had cost him my sister. Catherine, he had written, each time I am with her, I feel sick. Why is it not you beside me, the one I always long for? I dare not sleep deeply for fear that in my dreams I will call your name. While I mourned the loss of my place on the battlefield, I ignored the pain in his eyes when he looked at my sister. When I finally confronted him, his eyes wavered, but he said nothing. My wife, I am tired. The wine has made me restless. I'll sleep in the study tonight. He staggered away without meeting my gaze, and I knew that was his answer. I turned to my bed, reaching under the pillow for the 3 small carvings Jonathan had made for me. He had told me they were to keep me company when he was away training, promising to give me one each year. I handed one to Linnea and told her to throw it away. She stared at me in shock. But my lady, didn't you say you would keep them forever? I met her eyes and repeated, throw it away. The other 2 I set on the table untouched as I lay awake through the night. In the morning, Linnea brought me a letter from my mother telling me Catherine had fallen ill while distributing supplies to refugees. She warned me to take care of my health now that the weather had turned cold. Jonathan was in the room as I read it. Before I could finish, he stood. I have a meeting at the governor's estate today. I can't join you for lunch. Will you be upset? I caught the sleeve of his coat and looked up, my eye aching. Normally, he would pull me into his arms and ease the pain with gentle hands, but today he only frowned. After a moment, he slipped his arm free. I'll come home early tonight so we can spend time together. All right. I bowed my head without answering. I knew that Catherine's illness mattered far more to him than I ever could. When he left, I changed into light clothing and followed him quietly into the cold. I knew my sister's nature well enough to predict that even while sick, she would still be at the clinic tending to patients. I hid across the street and watched as Jonathan, holding a packet of medicine, walked slowly toward her. He was a fool if he thought she needed his care. She had been a healer long before he decided to play the part of a concerned man. From a distance, I could not hear their words, but I could see that even as night fell, he had not left her side. My legs were numb from standing in the cold, so I turned and went home. Without a word, I handed Linnea the second of the small carvings Jonathan had once made for me. Throw this one away, too. Her eyes widened in disbelief. But my lady, didn't you say you would collect these until you grew old? I met her gaze without emotion. Throw it away. Jonathan did not return until after midnight, reeking of wine. Slipping into bed, he must have thought my steady breathing meant I was asleep because he wrapped his arms around me from behind. I froze, but he didn't notice. Then I heard the quiet murmur of his voice. You are still so indifferent, never giving me even a scrap of affection. Perhaps it's time to let go as you want. I will live well with Isabella. I will not face her. I will not look into her eyes. And because she resembles you so much, I should be content. My blood turned to ice. When his breathing deepened in sleep, I carefully removed his arm, rose from the bed, and under the silver glow of moonlight, picked up the last remaining carving. Without hesitation, I hurled it out the window. He wanted to live a good life like this, I did not. By the time Jonathan woke, I had already written the divorce letter. I wore a plain white dress, my hair unadorned, shadows still under my eyes from a sleepless night. He came toward me as if to embrace me. "It's cold, why are you dressed so lightly? Is your eye hurting so much you couldn't sleep? Let me warm you." I raised a hand to stop him. How could a man appear so loving in one moment, yet hold such contempt in another? The words he had written cut through me again, each sentence like a knife slicing into my heart. I kept my voice calm as I looked at the man I had loved since girlhood. "Jonathan, you love my sister, don't you?" His mouth opened, his lips moved, but no sound came. His face was a mask of panic. I stepped back, my tone detached as if I were telling someone else's story. "Catherine, she is blind in one eye, no longer resembling you. Every time I share a bed with her, I feel sick. When I return from earning my honors, I will leave her and marry you. Will you wait for me?" With each line, his head sank lower, his face paling, a flicker of regret crossing his expression. Regret I had finally seen the truth in his heart. His love belonged to someone else. He should have been relieved. Now he no longer had to bear the guilt of deceiving me or suppressing his real feelings. I had thought tearing away his mask would bring me satisfaction, yet my tears fell unchecked. He whispered, "Isabella, it's not like that." I cut him off. "Isn't it you stayed by my side while thinking of my sister? You pretended kindness to get news of her. Or maybe you were simply waiting to achieve some great victory before discarding me. I'll save you the trouble." I picked up the divorce letter and threw it into his face. "We are done." His hands trembled as he ripped the letter apart. "Divorce over my dead body." He seemed almost mad, dragging out the letters filled with his poisonous sentiments and setting them aflame before me. As the flames rose, a strange lightness flickered across his features. "They're gone, Isabella. All of it is gone. Now we can live well together," but I knew better. Once love has cracked, it can never be restored. In truth, for all these years, it had been a one-sided devotion, mine alone. The women of the capital had envied me. They said that even though I was blind in one eye, Jonathan never left me. Even though I had borne no child in 3 years, he never took another wife. Whenever others praised him for staying by my side, Jonathan would smile and say, "She is my childhood sweetheart. She lost an eye saving me. Protecting her is my duty." And then he would add that there was more than one kind of love in this world. At the time I believed him, but now I understand that the love he meant for me was not the love between a man and a woman. It was perhaps affection, perhaps the bond of two people who had survived hardship together, but it was not love. His heart was already full of my sister, leaving no room for me. Knowing this should have made me numb, yet pain still crawled through my body like a swarm of biting ants, stealing my breath and shaking my voice. "Jonathan, you never had to do this. If you had told me from the beginning that you loved my sister, I would never have married you. I would not have bound you to me out of guilt." My tears fell hard and fast, disappearing into the ground as I whispered, "From childhood until the day we wed, this was our fate. But today it ends." I turned to leave, but he lunged forward, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Isabella, don't do this. Don't divorce me. Let me spend the rest of my life making it up to you." I pried his fingers off, my voice cold. "You disgust me." He froze at that, still clinging to his lies. "I love you," he said, trembling. "Please don't leave me." Seeing you cry tears my heart apart. The weight in my chest was unbearable, a sharp ache driving into me over and over. My throat tightened until I could hardly breathe. I spun and struck him hard across the face. "Don't force me to hate you." His head snapped to the side, his eyes rimmed red. "Must you be so cruel?" he asked. But he had been cruel long before. He had built a dream for me only to shatter it himself. Before I could answer, Catherine appeared. She always prepared medicine for my seasonal cough, always searched for remedies for my blinded eye. She had once read of a rare herb that could restore sight, and had climbed dangerous cliffs to gather it for me. Over 3 years, my vision had slowly begun to return, though never fully. Yet as I stood there, the man I had loved was still looking only at her, and I no longer knew how to face her. She stepped into the room, taking in the disarray without a glance at Jonathan. She held out her hand to me. "Isabella, come here." The simple sound of her voice broke whatever was left of my composure. Tears flooded my eyes, blurring her face. "Catherine, I'm in so much pain. Please, take me home." I could barely stand, my body threatening to collapse. She came quickly, slipping an arm around me and holding me upright. Then she turned to Jonathan, her gaze like ice. "Today we leave this house and never return. A daughter of the Moore family does not look back." I wept openly, all strength gone, while she murmured by my ear, "Come, let's go home." In the carriage, I clung to her and sobbed until my voice gave out. She waited until I was quiet, then spoke softly. "When you came of age, Jonathan came to see me. I didn't realize his feelings then, but he said nothing, and I told him I would never marry. I thought you and he had always been closer, that he loved you. Yesterday when he came to the clinic, I knew something was wrong. That's why I came today. Do you blame me?" I drew a deep breath and shook my head. Then I told her every word I had read in Jonathan's letter. Catherine's face hardened as I finished. "He's a coward," she said coldly. "A despicable man. Let me go back and poison him." I caught her hand. "He loved you from the beginning. He married me only out of guilt for my eye. This isn't your fault. I just want the divorce to happen quickly and never see him again." She squeezed my hand gently. "I'll explain everything to father and mother. But Isabella, do you resent me?" I shook my head. "He loved you alone. I could never let a man come between us." She smiled, then faint but certain. "He's just one foul man. There are many others who would treasure you, and I'll help you find them." When my parents learned I wanted a divorce, they went to speak with Jonathan themselves. But for reasons I didn't yet understand, he denied any betrayal and clung to a promise he had once made to them, insisting he would never fail me. He refused to sign, even claiming a broken leg to avoid meeting me. It was then that grim news arrived from the northern border. The northern marauders had invaded, crossing the river for days in succession, advancing toward Denton Valley. At first, the government intended to send Jonathan, but his supposed injury made that impossible, and word of it spread quickly through the capital. In the end, Colonel Matthew Grant volunteered to lead the defense. That day, my sister and I were both elated. For me, it was finally my chance to step onto the battlefield and fight for my country. For Catherine, it meant she could save the wounded with her skills, and for one more reason. "Isabella," she told me quietly, "my greatest wish is to see your eye healed. I've read of a rare formula the northern marauders keep that might fully restore your sight. This war is dangerous, but it's also our only chance to try." My eyes stung as I squeezed her hand. "I know, you've loved me most since we were children. Convincing our parents wasn't hard. Since my injury, they had known our dreams and never tried to crush them." My father sighed but agreed. My mother's parting words were solemn. "A woman's battlefield is not always within four walls. I've known since you were small that you and Catherine were unlike anyone else. Just promise me you will both return safely." I had been in and out of army camps since I was young, familiar with many officers. When Jonathan was still a rising soldier, some of his early victories had my strategies behind them. Even with my injury, I had continued to train relentlessly. I felt most at home with the curved steel of my moonblade in my hands. If Jonathan refused to grant me freedom, I would petition President Whitaker himself. Colonel Grant knew of my past achievements, and instead of doubting me, he invited me to his headquarters to discuss tactics. As I left his residence that day, I ran into Jonathan for the first time in weeks. He looked worn down. Once seeing him again would have shattered me, but in the shadow of war, romance seemed small. He eyed me sharply. "You're going to Denton Valley." I said nothing, but he stepped closer, gripping my shoulders. "Do you know what that place is? This isn't a game. Even if you want to spite me, don't risk your life for it." His arrogance was staggering. "Isabella, I know you're angry, but nothing ever happened between your sister and me. After all we've shared in 3 years, can you truly cut me off completely?" I looked up at him. "If you have even a shred of respect for what we had, stop fighting the divorce." His eyes reddened, his expression fracturing. "Don't leave me, please." I shook my head. "No." His fists clenched. "Those letters were written a long time ago. No one even remembers them. I never sent them. I thought I loved your sister, but I see now it was only obsession. When you walked away, I realized you were the one I loved, the one who had always stood by me. Think of what we've been through, Isabella. Can't you give me one chance to make it right? Can't you give me just one chance to make it right? Jonathan's voice was raw, almost breaking. My fingers twitched, but my gaze stayed steady. No, Jonathan. Others might deserve that chance, but not you. His brow furrowed. I looked at him without warmth. In my fondest memories of our youth, your heart was never mine alone. It was tainted by feelings for someone else. You let that confusion poison what could have been pure between us. Most of all, you never stopped thinking about my sister. And where did that leave me? Did you ever wonder how I would face her knowing your heart belonged to her? You were selfish. There was room only for you in your own eyes. If I pretended nothing had happened, I would live each day doubting you and myself, trapped in a constant ache. Why should I bear that burden? The best ending I can imagine is to divorce you and erase you from my life forever. His eyes flushed red. I still don't think I've done anything wrong. Your sister and I never crossed that line. I know my own heart. Could you not walk away? Didn't we promise to grow old together? Didn't you tell me you'd give me children? His voice faltered. I shook my head slowly, remembering the small carved figurines I had thrown away. I gave you chances, Jonathan. I stayed not because I was waiting for you to love me, but because I was waiting until I no longer loved you. Now I'm done. His grip on my arm tightened, as if letting me go would mean losing me forever. I don't want a divorce. I can't lose you. I pried his fingers away. It's fine. If you won't do it, I'll find my own way. Without another glance, I walked away. War was pressing at our borders, and the orders came swiftly. My sister Catherine and I joined Colonel Grant's forces of 30,000 men heading north. Throughout the long journey, our hearts burned with the same resolve. Isabella, don't worry. I will heal your eye, she promised. I leaned against her shoulder, teasing softly. I know. You've loved me most since the day we were born. Her arms were warm, pulling me back to childhood. I had always been the mischievous one, earning our parents' scolding, while Catherine, calm and steady, mended the damage. To the world, she was an aloof, untouchable flower. Only I knew her heart was the warmest place on earth. I would not let a faithless man chill that warmth. On the march, I often discussed strategy with Colonel Grant. Our army held no prejudice against women in battle. Our nation's greatest war hero was a woman, General Rebecca Lawson, who had crushed the northern marauders years ago, forcing them beyond Denton Valley and keeping our people safe for decades. But now they had returned, led by a new ruler eager to expand. Our land was rich, and taking even a few cities would bring them great wealth. So they tore up the peace treaty. They were raised on the plains, Colonel Grant said, stronger than most of our men, masters of horse and bow. Their cavalry is light, perfect for scouting and harassing infantry. They favor guerrilla warfare, which makes them dangerous. Not always, I countered, tracing my finger over the map. Sometimes a weakness can be turned into an advantage. He raised an eyebrow, meaning when I was young I fought in several skirmishes when their raiders crossed our border. They were fast and mobile, but I was not. I chose to meet them head-on, forcing their cavalry into close combat, where their formation would shatter. Jonathan fought in those battles too, a junior officer then. Using that strategy, we broke their charge and won quickly. He was brave, skilled. I handled the coordination from behind, and we ended it swiftly. He earned his honors that day. I didn't say how different it felt to think of him now, how distant those memories seemed. Colonel Grant's eyes lingered on me. Your father raised an extraordinary daughter. I smiled faintly. I hope he thinks so too. The marauders fought exactly as expected, splitting into small units that struck and vanished into the hills. But this time I was ready. They never faced us in open battle, always darting in and out like shadows. But if they wouldn't attack directly, then we would strike first, giving them no time to react. We could not let the war drag on into winter. Our men could not endure the northern cold, and we would be forced into a defensive position. It was already September, so ending this swiftly was our only option. For a month we fought them head-on, hammering their forces with relentless assaults. I took up my moonlight blade and personally cut down several of their commanders, raising the morale of our troops. I still remember the first time I killed a man, how my hands shook afterward. Back then, Jonathan stood beside me, shielding me with his own body. You're safe. Just stay behind me, he had said, thinking I was afraid. But fear was never the reason for my silence. In my heart, I knew I didn't need protection because I was strong enough to stand on my own. I used to think I was lucky to have married the boy I had loved, to have a husband who supported my ambitions. Now looking back, it feels like a beautiful dream that had long since dissolved. By October, the air turned sharp with frost, and snowflakes began to drift from the sky. Yet the northern marauders showed no sign of retreat. Instead, they increased their sudden raids. When one soldier fell, another instantly replaced him, their attacks flowing like a river, crossing into our lands without pause. We had prepared defensive formations, so our losses were small, but their tactics wore our men down. 2 months passed. We pushed them back beyond the river, but they did not withdraw. It became clear to both me and Colonel Grant that they were stalling for time, waiting for December. When the river froze, when our food stores ran low, when our soldiers were weakened by the cold, they would cross in full force for a decisive strike. We began urgent council meetings. It was then Jonathan appeared. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "It doesn't matter." Colonel Grant frowned at him. "Don't bring petty quarrels here. I need my warriors focused." I suspected he had heard about my intent to divorce. Jonathan's silence switched to a professional tone. "General Lawson anticipated the marauders' strategy to drain our strength. She sent me to ensure we end this quickly." I said nothing. Maybe he volunteered to come here, but this was no time to pry. Whatever I felt toward him personally, this was about the lives of our soldiers. Grant included him in the war council. I made my case. If we want this over soon, we cannot keep trading blows in their guerrilla game. The marauders lack a central authority, their clans are equals, and their leaders hold limited sway. This independence is both their advantage and their weakness. When we fought them head-on before their cavalry struck and vanished, bleeding our strength. But if we trap them before they can run, they'll fall apart. Grant's eyes lit with recognition. "We strike across the river." He tapped the map. "Jonathan, take 20,000 men. Cut trees, build the bridge, and cross before dawn to attack. Isabella, take 5,000 over the mountains to their left flank, severing their retreat. I'll hold 3,000 on the right to encircle and crush them, while the remaining 2,000 guard Denton Valley. Our strength is speed, this must be swift." I nodded without hesitation, but Jonathan's face darkened. Grant clapped his shoulder. "Your leg's healed, hasn't it?" "Don't disappoint me." "I won't," Jonathan said. But before leaving, he looked at me with an unreadable intensity. I turned away. "Your Highness, I'll prepare my troops." Grant stopped me. "What do you think of Denton Valley?" I wasn't sure what he meant, but answered honestly. "Its people are strong, and it's far freer than the capital. It's a good place." "Good." He gave me a faint, knowing smile. "Go get ready. I trust you. Don't let me down." Jonathan lingered. "I won't be with you this time. Be careful. Stay safe." His words didn't warm me. Whatever love I once felt for him had long since gone cold. I didn't want to burden him with more words before the battle, so I simply nodded. The marauders are skilled horsemen and archers, tall and powerful, and they fight without fear. You must be careful. I turned to leave, but he called out after me. "If I return victorious, Isabella," I cut him off. "This is about the fate of our country, Jonathan. Personal matters can wait." He said nothing more. I strode back to camp, drew my moonlight blade, and raised my voice. "Soldiers of Denton, follow me into battle and drive the marauders from our lands." The answering roar shook the earth. Catherine insisted on coming with me. "You lead your troops," she said firmly. "I'll stay in the rear and protect you. I can't leave your safety to the medics alone." I couldn't refuse her, so I agreed. She clasped my hand and told me she had found the ancient remedy that could restore my sight. "When we return, I'll help you look as beautiful as you once did." I smiled. "Sister beauty doesn't matter anymore. I have my own purpose now." Her face turned serious. "Nonsense. You are my pride, and I want you to be the most beautiful and formidable commander on the battlefield. You deserve nothing less." She had always put me first, and I had no choice but to agree. As we planned, the marauders never imagined we would build a bridge overnight to cross the river, nor that I would bring so many soldiers to meet them head-on. They thought all our forces were concentrated under Jonathan's command, so they reacted quickly, feigning direct engagement while sending smaller units through the mountains to infiltrate Denton Valley, but every move they made was already in our plan. On the right, they faced me. On the left, Colonel Grant waited. In front, 20,000 of our best stood ready, forming a trap they could not escape. To block their retreat, Jonathan's vanguard struck first, seizing their stronghold at Stockton. His battle was over swiftly. Mine was another matter. My troops were facing their finest mounted archers. This time, I refused to meet them directly. I used their own guerrilla tactics against them, stretching the fight out for days. I knew they carried limited provisions. When my scouts reported their supplies were nearly gone, I gave the order for a full assault. I led the charge myself, blade flashing, as we crashed into their ranks. In the chaos, I never expected to see Jonathan. I had just cut down a horse when an enemy rider loosed an arrow straight at me. In that split second, I raised my blade to block, but Jonathan was faster. He threw himself in front of me. I swung and beheaded the attacker, but the arrow had already struck Jonathan's eye. I caught him as he fell and hoisted him onto a horse. Fool. I could have handled it alone, but he had to prove something, and now he had lost an eye. Within 5 days, we had won a decisive victory. The marauders surrendered 2 cities as reparations. When we returned to Denton Valley, Catherine heard about Jonathan's injury and laughed. Serves him right. Shame the arrow didn't finish him. I quickly covered her mouth. Sister, she turned away. Don't expect me to treat the man who hurt my sister. As far as I'm concerned, he can stay blind. The colonel has arranged other care for him. Tomorrow we return to the capital. I know, I said, but Denton has herbs the capital lacks. I'll buy some to speed your recovery. Whenever the subject was me, she was always cheerful and attentive. I offered to send some people with her, and after she left, I went to see Jonathan. He was sitting with one side of his face heavily bandaged. When he saw me, he stood quickly. Isabella. I said nothing. He continued, It doesn't hurt. I'm fine. Don't be upset. I shook my head. I'm not upset. This was your choice. He pressed his lips together, smiling bitterly. Do you truly want to have nothing to do with me anymore? Jonathan, I said, when I lost my sight years ago, I never asked you to marry me out of gratitude. I looked at him steadily. Jonathan, just because you're injured now doesn't mean I'll forgive you out of guilt. That's not why I'm here, he said quietly. I only wanted to keep you from harm. I cut him off. On the battlefield, anyone can be wounded. When I marched with the army, I was prepared to die if necessary. I'm still alive, still whole enough. When we return to the capital, we'll end this marriage. His lips trembled. You don't love me anymore, I thought for a moment, then spoke slowly. What remains between us is the understanding of 2 people who once knew each other, the respect of fellow soldiers. But love, that's gone. He was silent for a long time before asking, Do you know what I thought when that arrow came for you? I didn't think of anything else, only that you, my Isabella, could not be harmed, no matter the cost to me. His voice broke. Years ago when you saved me, did you feel the same way? I stepped back toward the door. It doesn't matter anymore. I had barely stepped outside when Colonel Grant caught my arm. Isabella listened to me calmly. It's your sister. My heart lurched. What about Catherine? He pulled me into a tight embrace, his voice heavy with grief. On her way back from buying medicine, she was ambushed by marauder stragglers in disguise. My knees nearly gave out, my mind blank. Where is she now? Come with me. When I saw her, several arrows were embedded in her body, her white clothes soaked in crimson, like a scarlet peony blooming in snow. Sis, it's okay, you'll be fine. I'll find the best healers in the land for you. She smiled faintly, handing me the medicine she'd bought along with an ancient remedy. I found it, Isa. This will heal your eye. I don't care about my eye. I care about you. I can live with one good eye, but I can't live without you. She brushed my cheek with trembling fingers, and I clutched her hand. What I want most, she whispered, is to see you whole body and spirit. I've always been proud of you. Tears spilled down my face. We still have so much to do together. Please don't leave me. Sweet, foolish girl. My purpose is fulfilled. I've supported your dream, helped countless soldiers return home. I have no regrets. No, your work isn't finished. You have to be here to see me heal. She shook her head weakly. I'll always be with you when I go cremate me. We'll reach the capital in 2 weeks. I don't want my body to burden the journey. Her voice grew weaker. She told me she'd use the dagger I'd given her to kill the two who attacked her. Was I brave like you? I held her tight. You're the bravest of us all. Just hold on. We'll take the arrows out. No. Wait until I'm gone. I don't want the blood to ruin this moment. Isa, you must be free. I'll go ahead and find that freedom. Her hand slipped from mine. I collapsed over her, choking on my sobs. Don't leave me. They say in Denton Valley that if a wish remains unfulfilled, you can go to the lakeshore and pray. That night I crawled forward on my knees, praying to the heavens to spare my sister. In the middle of the night I saw Jonathan in the distance. He knelt beside me praying as well. We didn't speak, our hearts held the same plea. When dawn came, my hands and knees were raw. Jonathan moved to help me, but I pushed him away. You hate me so much, why can't you let me go? Why act so deep when I ask for divorce? Sometimes I don't understand you. He sat down beside me, smiling bitterly. When I married you, I admit I saw you as a stand-in. I resented you for saving me because it meant I had to marry you or face disgrace. I poured my feelings into letters I never sent, and when I didn't understand myself, I sought your sister. I knew she wouldn't love me. I only wanted to close that chapter. When she refused me, I drank that night thinking I could live with you without burden. But when you asked for divorce, I learned how much a heart can hurt. Remembering all we've been through, I realized I had loved you all along, I just never recognized it. His voice was raw now. You can punish me any way you want, but don't leave me. I shook my head. No, Jonathan. Whatever your reasons, I can't go back. I walked away alone, refusing his help. When I reached the doorway, Colonel Grant found me again. Your sister. She's out of danger. When the news reached me, joy surged so fiercely, I almost collapsed to my knees. Colonel Grant's face tightened as he looked at my bruised hands and scraped knees, then without a word, he lifted me into his arms. You mustn't fall, he said firmly. When your sister awoke, the first person she asked for was you. Catherine's face was pale, but her eyes were as bright as ever. She lifted a hand, beckoning me closer, with a look of deep affection. Look at you, she murmured. Why do you let yourself get like this? Now I have to go make medicine for you again. I let the tears spill freely as I fell into her arms, clinging to her, as if she were the anchor that could steady my entire world. She stroked my hair and smiled. You always know how to get me to do exactly what you want. Buried in her warm embrace, I felt a rare peace. Denton Valley was truly a place where wishes could come true. I had my sister back. Though her wounds had missed her heart, they had taken her strength. She would never again be able to travel far. She would have to remain here to recover. The medics said her convalescence might last 10, even 20 years. I promised to return to our parents with the news to tell them how much she loved this place. Isa, she told me I adore the freedom in this air. When you're in the capital, take care of yourself. I didn't answer, but in my heart, my plan was already set. Within days, orders came from Colonel Grant for a forced march, and after 10 days, we reached Washington. During the journey, Jonathan Reed came to see me, but I refused. I didn't want to hear his familiar words again. The president himself came to greet our return. During the ceremony to reward service, he asked if I had a request. I bowed deeply. Your Excellency, I request to be granted a divorce from Jonathan Reed. Across the hall, Jonathan's eyes reddened instantly, and silence fell over the chamber. I kept my head lowered. I have one more request. Please allow me to be stationed in Denton Valley to protect the border. I want no titles, no wealth, only the right to remain there to care for my sister. Jonathan tried to object, but I told him plainly that if necessary, I would ask the president to issue a formal decree. I was a Moor when I said I would do something, I meant it. After a long moment, the president agreed. The decree was written, and our marriage was over. That evening, as I left the palace, Jonathan blocked my path. In the light of the setting sun, grief shadowed his face. Isabella, is there truly no chance left for us? I met his gaze without flinching. Jonathan, the day you wrote those words, you knew what would follow. I gave you the chance to protect your dignity. You refused, so I fought for myself. My sister told me once the Moors never walk the same road twice. He swayed as if my words had struck him physically. Why won't you let me spend the rest of my life caring for you? I stepped aside. I've never needed you to survive. I have my own purpose. When you said that, it proved we no longer share the same path. Now I understand why you admired my sister. You saw her as proud and untouchable, someone who needed protection. You thought I was different, strong, independent. And when I lost an eye, you decided I'd become fragile enough for you to guard. You mistook that for love. Even now you think I'm weak. But neither my sister nor I have ever needed to lean on anyone. We are like cotton trees, rooted deep in the earth, blooming crimson flowers in the wind without climbing or clinging to anything. I looked at him one last time. Jonathan, you're no longer the one who walks beside me. After bidding farewell to my parents, I took my sister's jade hairpin and set off knowing she would approve of my choice. I looked up into the sky. Catherine, wait for me, we'll walk together again. But I had barely gone 2 miles before the sound of pounding hooves came up fast behind me. I turned to see Colonel Grant, the 5th Prince, riding hard through the rain, strong and sure. In the saddle, his eyes lit with resolve. Isabella, do you remember when I asked you about Denton Valley? He called. I thought back and nodded. My answer had been that Denton was freedom. He smiled as he drew alongside me. Then from now on, you and I will walk this road together. It was only later I learned he and the Crown Prince had once been rivals for the throne, though he had no desire for it. A man of his skill was always a threat to whoever sat upon the seat of power, and so he chose to remove himself, requesting to be made a regional lord and commander in Denton Valley. It kept him far from the capital's intrigues, and let him protect the people there, becoming a ruler of both grace and strength. I smiled, urging my horse to match his pace. Catherine, look on this road. The wind itself is freedom.